This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Welcome to an exploration of one of the most challenging and controversial topics in the study of human behavior, the sociobiological theories of rape. This complex and sensitive subject has ignited fierce debate, raising fundamental questions about the nature of human sexuality, the roots of violence, and the interplay of biology, psychology, and culture. This exploration aims to provide a clear and accessible overview of these theories, examining the arguments, the evidence, and the ethical implications in easy-to-understand language. We'll embark on a journey that delves into the heart of this storm, navigating the often conflicting perspectives on the potential evolutionary roots of rape. We'll examine the arguments of those who suggest that rape might be, in some way, a product of our evolutionary past, a strategy etched into our genes by the relentless pressures of natural selection. We'll also carefully consider the counter-arguments, exploring the perspectives of those who vehemently reject this notion, viewing rape as a horrifying aberration, a tragic consequence of other evolved traits, or a purely social and cultural phenomenon. This exploration is not for the faint of heart. It will challenge deeply held beliefs, force us to confront uncomfortable truths, and perhaps leave us with more questions than answers. However, it is a journey worth taking, for it offers the potential for a deeper understanding of the complex factors that contribute to sexual violence. By exploring the tangled web of evolutionary pressures, cultural influences, individual experiences, and social dynamics, we can gain a more nuanced perspective on the roots of this devastating crime. Throughout this exploration, we will maintain a focus on critical analysis, examining the evidence presented by both sides of the debate, acknowledging the limitations of current research, and highlighting the ethical implications of various interpretations. We'll delve into the animal kingdom, examining behaviors that bear a superficial resemblance to human rape, while carefully considering the dangers of anthropomorphism and the limitations of applying animal models to human behavior. We'll also explore the social and cultural context in which these theories emerged, recognizing the profound impact of societal norms, gender roles, and power dynamics on the perpetration and prevention of rape. Prepared to grapple with challenging questions. Is there a biological basis for rape, or is it purely a social construct? Can evolutionary theories shed light on the motivations of rapists, or do they risk excusing or justifying sexual violence? How do cultural factors, individual experiences, and social dynamics interact to shape the rapist's mind? What are the ethical implications of exploring the potential evolutionary roots of such a devastating crime? By the end of this exploration, you will have a deeper understanding of the complexities of the sociobiology of rape debate. You will be equipped to critically evaluate the arguments, the evidence, and the ethical considerations surrounding this controversial topic. You will also gain a greater appreciation for the challenges involved in understanding and addressing the devastating crime of rape, a crime that affects individuals, families, and communities worldwide. This is not just an academic exercise. It's a journey towards a more nuanced and informed perspective on one of the most pressing issues facing humanity. Chapter 1. The Seeds of Controversy. A Firestorm Ignites. Imagine a world where the unspeakable act of rape is not solely viewed as a crime of violence and power, but potentially rooted in our very biology, a chilling echo of our evolutionary past. This is the unsettling landscape painted by sociobiological theories of rape, theories that, upon their emergence, ignited a firestorm of controversy that continues to smolder today. Before these theories appeared, the prevailing understanding of rape centered on social and cultural factors. Rape was seen as an act of aggression, domination, and control, wielded by men against women. It was a tool of patriarchal power, a means of subjugation, and a manifestation of societal misogyny. The motives were understood to be anything but sexual. They were about asserting dominance, inflicting humiliation, and perpetuating fear. Into this established narrative, sociobiological theories introduced a jarring new element: the potential for an evolutionary basis for rape. These theories suggested that rape, or at least a predisposition towards it, might be an inherited trait, a strategy passed down through generations to enhance reproductive success. This immediately clashed with the existing paradigm, and the reaction was swift and fierce. The backlash was fueled by several key accusations. One of the most potent was the charge of victim blaming. Critics argued that by suggesting an evolutionary basis for rape, these theories implicitly shifted some of the responsibility onto the victims. If rape was a natural, biological phenomenon, then, some feared, the implication was that women were somehow inherently vulnerable, inviting or even provoking such attacks. This fear was exacerbated by some proponents' suggestions that women's behavior, such as their clothing choices or their presence in certain situations, could influence their risk of being raped. While these proponents stressed that no behavior justifies rape, their words were often interpreted as a subtle form of victim blaming, further inflaming the controversy. Another major point of contention was the accusation of genetic determinism. Critics argued that these theories presented a dangerously simplistic view of human behavior, reducing complex social interactions to the dictates of our genes. They feared that by portraying rape as a natural, biological impulse, these theories stripped individuals of their agency and responsibility, suggesting that men were somehow programmed to rape and women were powerless to resist. This sparked concerns that such theories could be used to excuse or even justify rape, undermining efforts to hold perpetrators accountable for their actions. The social and cultural context in which these theories emerged further shaped the intensity of the backlash. The 1970s and 80s saw the rise of second-wave feminism, a movement that challenged traditional gender roles and brought issues of sexual violence to the forefront of public consciousness. Rape was increasingly recognized as a serious social problem, a tool of patriarchal oppression, and a violation of women's fundamental rights. The introduction of sociobiological theories, with their potential to undermine these hard-won gains, was met with understandable resistance. The debate quickly became polarized. On one side were those who saw sociobiological theories as a valuable new lens through which to understand rape, potentially offering insights into prevention strategies. They emphasized that acknowledging a potential biological basis for a behavior does not equate to condoning or justifying it. On the other side were those who vehemently opposed these theories, seeing them as dangerous, misogynistic, and scientifically flawed. They argued that these theories risked legitimizing sexual violence, shifting blame onto victims, and reinforcing harmful stereotypes about men and women. Adding fuel to the fire were instances of misinterpretation and misuse of these theories. Some individuals, including some members of the media, seized upon these theories to promote their own agendas, distorting the scientific findings to support pre-existing biases about gender and sexuality. This further muddied the waters, making it even more difficult to have a productive discussion about the complex and sensitive issue of rape. The introduction of sociobiological theories of rape did not simply add another layer to the ongoing discussion about the causes of sexual violence. It detonated a bomb, shattering the existing framework and creating a chasm between opposing viewpoints. The fallout from this explosion continues to shape the debate today, highlighting the profound ethical, social, and scientific challenges involved in understanding and addressing the devastating crime of rape. The seeds of controversy, once sown, had taken root, and a firestorm had begun. Chapter 2. Nature's Crucible. The animal kingdom presents a complex tapestry of sexual behaviors, some of which bear a superficial resemblance to human rape. Observations of what appears to be forced copulation in various species have fueled a contentious debate about the evolutionary roots of this deeply disturbing human act. However, the leap from observing animal behavior to explaining human motivations is fraught with peril, often leading to flawed conclusions and the potential justification of sexual violence. Forced copulations, involving sexual penetration despite clear resistance or attempts to escape, have been documented in a range of species. In ducks, for instance, forced copulations are disturbingly common. Males, often larger and more aggressive than females, will pin down a female, sometimes in groups, and force copulation, often causing injury or even death. In bottlenose dolphins, similar coercive mating tactics have been observed, with males sometimes working in coordinated groups to isolate and forcibly mate with a female. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, also exhibit behavior resembling forced copulation. Males, especially higher-ranking ones, may use aggression and intimidation to coerce females into mating, sometimes against their apparent will. Among orangutans, forced copulations constitute a significant portion, up to half, of all observed matings. These forced copulations involve males approaching and penetrating females while they actively struggle or try to flee. The case of scorpionflies offers a more nuanced, yet still troubling, example. Male scorpionflies employ two primary mating strategies. One involves presenting a nuptial gift of food to the female, which she consumes during copulation. The other, more aggressive tactic, occurs when males lack the resources to provide a gift. In these instances, the male will grab the female with specialized claspers, effectively trapping her while he forces copulation. This forced copulation is clearly linked to resource availability, suggesting a complex interplay of factors beyond simple sexual motivation. While these observations are well documented, the interpretation of these behaviors and their relevance to human rape is highly contested. One of the primary criticisms revolves around the danger of anthropomorphism, the tendency to attribute human motivations and emotions to animals. While it's tempting to interpret a female animal's struggle as equivalent to human experiences of fear, trauma, and violation, such interpretations are often based on projection rather than scientific evidence. Animals may be acting on entirely different impulses, driven by instinctual responses and survival strategies that have little to do with human concepts of consent or violation. Furthermore, applying evolutionary principles across species requires careful consideration of the vast differences in social structures, cognitive abilities, and moral frameworks. Humans have developed complex social norms, ethical codes, and legal systems that govern sexual behavior, elements largely absent in the animal kingdom. To suggest that animal behaviors can directly explain or even justify human actions like rape ignores the profound impact of culture, learning, and individual choice on human behavior. For example, some sociobiological theories have suggested that rape is an adaptive strategy for males who cannot otherwise secure mates. However, this theory fails to explain the prevalence of rape within established relationships, including marriage, or the fact that not all men who struggle to find partners resort to rape. These instances demonstrate the limitations of applying simplistic evolutionary explanations to complex human social dynamics. Another problematic interpretation involves the concept of female resistance. Some proponents of sociobiological theories have argued that female resistance in animals is merely a part of the mating ritual, a way of testing the male's strength and dominance. This interpretation, when applied to humans, can lead to the dangerous misconception that a woman's no doesn't really mean no, or that resistance is a form of flirtation or invitation. Such interpretations can have devastating consequences, contributing to a culture that normalizes or even excuses sexual violence. The ethical implications of these interpretations are profound. If rape is seen as a natural, biological phenomenon, it risks being perceived as inevitable or even justifiable. This can undermine efforts to prevent rape, hold perpetrators accountable, and support survivors. It can also lead to victim blaming, placing the onus on women to avoid being raped rather than addressing the root causes of male violence. The use of animal examples to explain human rape is a complex and highly sensitive issue. While observations of animal behavior can provide valuable insights into the diversity of sexual strategies in nature, they cannot be directly extrapolated to explain the complexities of human behavior. Anthropomorphism, simplistic evolutionary explanations, and the misinterpretation of female resistance can all distort our understanding of both animal and human behavior, potentially leading to the normalization and justification of sexual violence. The study of human rape requires a multifaceted approach that considers the intricate interplay of biological, social, cultural, and individual factors, recognizing the unique cognitive abilities, moral frameworks, and social structures that shape human actions. Chapter 3. A Natural History of Outrage. The publication of Randy Thornhill and Craig T. Palmer's *A Natural History of Rape, Biological Bases of Sexual Coercion in 2000 ignited a firestorm of controversy that extended far beyond the academic world. The author's central argument, that rape, under certain circumstances, evolved as a genetically advantageous behavioral adaptation, challenged deeply held beliefs about the nature of sexual violence and sparked outrage among scientists, feminists, and ethicists alike. Thornhill and Palmer built their argument on the foundation of evolutionary biology, specifically the concept of differential reproductive investment between men and women. They argued that because men can potentially father many children with minimal biological investment, while women can have only a few and face significant physical and temporal costs associated with pregnancy and childrearing, men are inherently driven to seek multiple sexual partners. This, they claimed, creates a fundamental conflict between male and female reproductive strategies. To support their hypothesis, Thornhill and Palmer drew parallels between animal behavior and human actions. They pointed to observations of what they termed forced copulations in various species, including ducks, geese, bottlenose dolphins, chimpanzees, and orangutans. In these instances, males often use aggression and coercion to overcome female resistance and achieve copulation. The authors also cited the mating practices of scorpionflies as particularly relevant. Male scorpionflies employed two distinct strategies: offering a nuptial gift of food to entice the female or resorting to forced copulation when resources are scarce. This, they argued, mirrored the human situation, where men might resort to rape when unable to secure partners through other means. Thornhill and Palmer further bolstered their argument by highlighting several characteristics of human rape that they believed pointed to an evolutionary basis. They emphasized that the majority of rape victims are of childbearing age, suggesting a link between rape and reproductive potential. They also noted that rapists typically use only the force necessary to subdue their victims, supposedly to avoid injury that would compromise reproductive capacity. Moreover, they pointed out that in many cultures, rape is treated as a crime against the victim's husband, which they interpreted as a reflection of the importance of reproductive rights. The reaction to A Natural History of Rape was swift and condemnatory. Critics accused the authors of committing the naturalistic fallacy, arguing that just because a behavior exists in nature does not make it morally right or justifiable. They also pointed to serious methodological flaws in the research, such as the reliance on anecdotal evidence and the problematic interpretation of animal behavior. The author's use of the term, forced copulation, in animals was particularly criticized, as it was seen as anthropomorphizing animal behavior and blurring the crucial distinction between animal instinct and human agency. Several researchers presented counter-arguments to challenge Thornhill and Palmer's hypothesis. Some argued that rape is primarily an act of violence and control, not a reproductive strategy, pointing to the high incidence of rape that does not result in pregnancy and the frequent use of excessive force that goes beyond what is necessary for mere subjugation. Others highlighted the prevalence of rape within existing relationships, including marriage, which further undermines the idea of rape as a strategy for securing otherwise unavailable mates. The fact that not all men who struggle to find partners resort to rape also cast doubt on the adaptive explanation. The authors proposed rape prevention strategies, stemming from their evolutionary perspective, also drew heavy criticism. They suggested educating young men about the potential for misinterpretations of female sexual signals, implying that men might be inherently predisposed to misinterpret cues of consent. They also recommended changes in social interaction patterns, such as limiting interactions between men and women to public spaces in the early stages of relationships, which placed the onus of prevention on women rather than addressing male behavior. Thornhill and Palmer responded to the criticism by framing the debate as a clash between ideology and knowledge. They portrayed themselves as objective scientists challenging the politically motivated dogma of social science, particularly feminist perspectives on rape. This framing, however, was widely rejected by critics who saw it as a disingenuous attempt to deflect legitimate scientific and ethical concerns. Critics argued that Thornhill and Palmer's work, far from being a purely scientific endeavor, was deeply embedded in cultural biases and ideological assumptions about gender and sexuality. Their selective use of evidence, flawed interpretations, and problematic recommendations, critics argued, revealed a clear agenda that went beyond simply seeking scientific truth. The controversy surrounding A Natural History of Rape highlighted the complex and often fraught relationship between science, ethics, and social values. The book became a lightning rod for discussions about the limits of evolutionary explanations for human behavior, the potential for scientific research to be misused or misinterpreted, and the importance of considering the social and political implications of scientific claims. The firestorm ignited by Thornhill and Palmer's work served as a stark reminder that science does not exist in a vacuum, and that even the most well-intentioned research can have unintended and potentially harmful consequences. Chapter 4. Adaptation or Aberration? The Heart of the Storm. The central question in the sociobiology of rape debate is whether rape is a horrifying aberration, a tragic byproduct of other evolved traits, or, most controversially, an adaptation itself, a strategy etched into our genes by the relentless crucible of natural selection. This debate is not merely an academic exercise. It strikes at the core of how we understand human nature, the roots of violence, and the potential for change. The adaptationist perspective, perhaps the most inflammatory of the three, posits that rape is a specifically evolved strategy, an alternative mating tactic for males unable to attract partners through conventional means. This view suggests that specific psychological mechanisms might have evolved to facilitate rape. Imagine, for instance, a predisposition to target fertile women, maximizing the chances of reproductive success. Or consider the chilling concept of the specialized rapist, a male whose arousal is specifically triggered by forced copulation. In certain ancestral environments, where resources were scarce and competition for mates fierce, these traits, however repugnant they seem today, might have conferred a reproductive advantage, increasing the likelihood of passing on one's genes. Proponents of this view often point to the animal kingdom, where behaviors resembling forced copulation have been observed in various species, from ducks and geese to dolphins and chimpanzees. The case of the scorpion fly, where males resort to forced copulation when unable to provide a nuptial gift of food, is often cited as a potential parallel. However, this adaptationist view faces a barrage of criticism. The high cost of rape, both to the victim and the perpetrator, the risk of injury, retaliation, social ostracism, makes it difficult to reconcile with the idea of a successful reproductive strategy. Furthermore, there's a lack of clear evidence for specific genetic mechanisms that would directly code for rape behavior. Critics argue that the complexity of human behavior, shaped by a myriad of social, cultural, and individual factors, cannot be reduced to simple genetic programming. The scorpion fly analogy, they contend, is a gross oversimplification, ignoring the vast gulf between insect instinct and human agency. A more nuanced evolutionary perspective suggests that rape might be a byproduct of other adaptations, an unintended consequence of traits selected for different purposes. For example, a generally higher level of aggression in males, potentially advantageous in hunting or defending territory, might increase the risk of sexual violence in certain contexts. Similarly, a stronger sex drive, while crucial for reproduction, might, in combination with other factors like social inequality or lack of access to willing partners, escalate into coercive behavior. This perspective emphasizes the complex interplay between evolved tendencies and environmental triggers. Research on varying sperm counts in different types of sexual encounters, with higher counts observed in forced copulations, has been interpreted by some as supporting this byproduct hypothesis. They argue that this physiological response could be a vestige of an ancestral environment where forced copulation, however undesirable, occasionally resulted in reproductive success. Yet, this byproduct hypothesis also has its weaknesses. It struggles to explain the specific characteristics of rape, such as the targeting of certain age groups or the use of excessive force. If rape were simply a byproduct of a heightened sex drive, one might expect a more random distribution of victims and a lesser degree of violence. Critics argue that this perspective fails to adequately account for the psychological and social dynamics that characterize rape. The pathological aberration perspective rejects the evolutionary framework altogether, viewing rape as a pathological behavior resulting from psychological dysfunction or social learning. This perspective highlights individual differences, arguing that rapists may suffer from specific psychological disorders, such as antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy. Alternatively, they may have learned to associate sex with violence through exposure to pornography, childhood trauma, or a culture that normalizes or even glorifies male dominance and aggression. This view readily accounts for the high costs of rape, as it doesn't require the behavior to be adaptive. Studies on women's psychological and physical responses during their menstrual cycle, with increased sensitivity to potential threats during fertile periods, have been cited as evidence of adaptations to avoid rape, suggesting that rape has been a significant risk throughout human history, but not necessarily an adaptive strategy for men. Furthermore, research on the psychological trauma experienced by rape victims, particularly those of childbearing age, underscores the devastating consequences of this act, further challenging the notion that it could be a successful reproductive strategy. The sociobiology of rape debate is a minefield of complex and sensitive issues, where scientific inquiry intersects with deeply held ethical and social values. While the adaptationist view has been largely discredited, the debate continues to shape our understanding of the interplay between biology, psychology, and culture in the genesis of sexual violence. It reminds us that exploring the potential evolutionary roots of human behavior requires careful consideration of the ethical implications, the limitations of animal analogies, and the crucial role of social and cultural factors in shaping our actions. The storm rages on, demanding nuanced and thoughtful exploration, not simplistic answers or ideological pronouncements. Chapter 5. The Labyrinth of Motive. Unraveling the Rapist's Mind. Understanding the mind of the rapist requires navigating a labyrinth of interacting influences, where individual psychology intertwines with the broader social and cultural landscape. While evolutionary theories offer one perspective on the origins of rape, a deeper understanding necessitates exploring the intricate interplay of biological, psychological, and social factors that can contribute to the perpetration of this devastating act. One avenue of exploration delves into the potential existence of specialized rapists, individuals whose sexual arousal stems not from consensual intimacy, but from the act of forced domination. Imagine a man whose fantasies revolve around coercion and control, whose sexual gratification is inextricably linked to the violation of another's will. This chilling possibility suggests that for some, rape is not merely a means to an end, but the very object of desire. However, the existence of such specialized rapists does not negate the influence of other factors, as even these individuals are embedded within a social context that shapes their desires and actions. Further complicating the picture is the role of psychopathy, a personality disorder characterized by a chilling lack of empathy and remorse. Picture a man who can inflict unimaginable pain without a flicker of conscience, who views others as mere instruments to satisfy his own desires. For such individuals, rape may be just one manifestation of a broader pattern of predatory behavior, driven by a fundamental disregard for the well-being of others. The concept of opportunistic rape introduces another layer of complexity, suggesting that some individuals might switch between forced and consensual sex depending on the circumstances. Consider a man who generally engages in consensual relationships but, under certain conditions, perhaps fueled by alcohol, social pressure, or a perceived opportunity, resorts to coercion and violence. This scenario highlights the potential for situational factors to override internalized moral restraints, transforming an otherwise normal individual into a perpetrator of sexual violence. One specific manifestation of opportunistic rape is partner rape, sometimes linked to the unsettling phenomenon of sperm competition. Imagine a man consumed by jealousy and possessiveness, suspecting or knowing that his partner has been sexually active with another male. In his mind, rape becomes a twisted act of reclamation, a way to assert his dominance and ensure his genetic legacy. This disturbing scenario illustrates how deeply ingrained biological drives, intertwined with social constructs of masculinity and ownership, can manifest in acts of sexual violence. Adding another dimension to the puzzle is the disturbing finding that a substantial proportion of males admit they would rape under specific conditions. Coupled with the prevalence of coercive sexual fantasies in many men, this revelation raises profound questions about the potential for rape to be a conditional strategy, a tactic employed under certain circumstances. But what are these conditions? Research suggests several possibilities. One involves situations where the perceived benefits of rape, such as sexual gratification or the assertion of dominance, outweigh the perceived costs, such as the risk of punishment or social ostracism. Another involves environments where male dominance is normalized or even glorified, where women are objectified and dehumanized, creating a climate of impunity for sexual violence. War zones, where social order collapses and violence becomes rampant, offer a chilling example of such an environment. Here, rape becomes a weapon of war, a means of terrorizing and subjugating the enemy. Social and cultural factors play a pervasive role in shaping the rapist's mind. Societies that promote male dominance and the sexual objectification of women create fertile ground for sexual violence. Consider the impact of media portrayals that reduce women to mere sexual objects, reinforcing the notion that their worth lies solely in their physical appearance and their availability to men. Or imagine the influence of male subcultures that celebrate aggression and dominance, where violence is seen as a marker of masculinity and sexual conquest as a badge of honor. In such environments, rape can become normalized, even glorified, as a demonstration of male power and entitlement. Individual experiences, particularly those involving childhood trauma or exposure to sexual violence, can also leave deep scars that contribute to the perpetration of rape. Imagine a child who grows up witnessing domestic violence, learning that aggression and control are acceptable ways to interact with others. Or consider the devastating impact of childhood sexual abuse, which can distort a child's understanding of sexuality, creating a warped association between sex and violence. These early experiences can shape an individual's psychology, creating vulnerabilities that increase the risk of perpetrating sexual violence later in life. The interplay between these individual-level factors and the broader social context is crucial. Societal influences can exacerbate the impact of personal experiences, creating a vicious cycle of violence. For instance, a child who experiences trauma in a society that stigmatizes mental health issues and lacks adequate support systems may be more likely to develop psychological problems that increase the risk of perpetrating rape. Similarly, a man who struggles with feelings of inadequacy in a culture that equates masculinity with dominance and sexual conquest may be more likely to resort to violence to assert his perceived manhood. Understanding the mind of the rapist is not about excusing or justifying their actions, but about unraveling the complex web of influences that contribute to sexual violence. By exploring the interplay of biological predispositions, psychological vulnerabilities, and social and cultural factors, we can gain a deeper understanding of the roots of this devastating crime. This knowledge is essential for developing effective prevention and intervention strategies, creating a society where sexual violence is not merely condemned, but actively challenged and ultimately eradicated. Chapter 6. The Tangled Web: Evolution, Culture, and the Roots of Rape. Moving beyond the simplistic nature versus nurture dichotomy is essential for a nuanced understanding of rape. While some theories suggest an evolutionary basis for certain predispositions, it's crucial to recognize the profound impact of culture, individual experiences, and social context on human behavior. These factors interact in complex ways, influencing both the perpetration and prevention of rape. Exploring the potential evolutionary basis for women's defense mechanisms against rape reveals a fascinating interplay of nature and nurture. One prominent theory centers on partner preferences. Women might have evolved a preference for men who can act as effective bodyguards, protecting them from sexual assault by other men. In an ancestral environment, where physical strength and social dominance were crucial for survival, such a preference could have conferred a significant advantage, increasing a woman's chances of surviving and raising offspring. Imagine a woman in a prehistoric community, constantly facing the threat of violence from both within and outside her social group. Choosing a physically powerful and socially dominant partner could have offered crucial protection, ensuring her safety and the survival of her children. However, this preference is not without its complexities and potential downsides. While a physically dominant partner might offer protection against external threats, he could also pose a greater risk of domestic violence. The very traits that make a man an effective bodyguard, strength, aggression, dominance, can also be turned inward against his partner. This creates a delicate balancing act, a trade-off between protection from external threats and the risk of violence within the relationship. Furthermore, a woman's preference for a dominant partner could be influenced by factors unrelated to rape prevention. Social status, access to resources, and the ability to provide for offspring are all attractive qualities that could contribute to a woman's choice of partner, regardless of his protective abilities. The intense psychological pain associated with rape, particularly during childbearing years, may also serve as a powerful deterrent. This pain can manifest in various ways, from immediate fear and trauma to long-term anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. This emotional distress can profoundly influence a woman's behavior, leading her to avoid situations perceived as risky and to seek out protective measures. The fact that this pain is often greatest during a woman's prime reproductive years suggests a potential evolutionary explanation. In an ancestral environment, rape during childbearing years would have had the most severe consequences, potentially leading to unwanted pregnancy, injury, and a decreased ability to care for existing offspring. The heightened psychological pain during these years could be an evolved response, amplifying the deterrent effect and motivating women to take extra precautions to avoid sexual assault. This emotional pain can also serve as a catalyst for learning and adaptation. Researchers suggest that the trauma of rape can focus a woman's attention on the social circumstances that enabled the assault, prompting her to develop strategies for avoiding similar situations in the future. For example, a woman who was raped while walking alone at night might become hyper-vigilant about her surroundings, avoid walking alone after dark, or take self-defense classes. A woman who was raped by an acquaintance might become more cautious about trusting new people, scrutinize social cues more carefully, or set stricter boundaries in her relationships. These adaptive responses, driven by the searing experience of trauma, can enhance a woman's ability to navigate a dangerous world and protect herself from future assaults. Research findings regarding women's increased sensitivity to coercive behavior and increased handgrip strength during the fertile phase of the menstrual cycle provide further insights into the complex interplay of biology and behavior. The evolutionary logic behind these changes centers on the heightened vulnerability and reproductive consequences of rape during peak fertility. Increased sensitivity to potential threats, such as subtle cues of aggression or dominance in men, could allow women to identify and avoid risky situations more effectively. The increase in handgrip strength, observed specifically in simulated coercive situations, suggests a potential physiological preparedness for physical defense. Imagine a woman in an ancestral environment, encountering a potentially threatening male during her fertile phase. Her heightened sensitivity allows her to recognize the danger, and her increased strength provides a slight but potentially crucial advantage in resisting an attack. However, these findings appear to contradict the observation that pregnancy from rape is more frequent than from consensual intercourse. Several hypotheses have been proposed to explain this discrepancy. One possibility is that rapists might disproportionately target women exhibiting signs of fertility, subconsciously or consciously drawn to cues of reproductive potential. Another hypothesis centers on physiological changes during the fertile phase. Some research suggests that hormonal fluctuations during this time might increase the likelihood of conception, even in cases of forced copulation. A third possibility involves the underreporting of consensual sexual encounters, particularly those that result in unintended pregnancy, which could skew the data and create the illusion of a higher pregnancy rate from rape. Addressing the complex problem of rape requires a multifaceted approach that goes beyond simplistic explanations. Challenging harmful social norms is crucial. This includes confronting the pervasive cultural messages that normalize or even glorify male dominance, aggression, and sexual entitlement. Specific examples include challenging the notion that boys will be boys, which excuses aggressive behavior, and combating the objectification of women in media, which reduces them to mere sexual objects. Promoting healthy relationships is equally important, educating individuals about consent, communication, and respect in sexual interactions. Specific examples include implementing comprehensive sex education programs in schools, providing resources for couples seeking relationship counseling, and creating public awareness campaigns that promote healthy masculinity and respectful relationships. Supporting victims is essential, providing access to medical care, psychological counseling, and legal assistance. Specific examples include establishing dedicated rape crisis centers, training law enforcement and medical personnel to respond sensitively to survivors of sexual assault, and creating support groups for victims and their families. Ultimately, creating a safer and more equitable society requires a fundamental shift in attitudes and behaviors. We must move beyond blaming victims and excusing perpetrators, recognizing the complex interplay of evolutionary, biological, psychological, social, and cultural factors that contribute to sexual violence. By understanding the tangled web of influences that underlie this devastating crime, we can develop more effective strategies for prevention, intervention, and support, paving the way for a future where all individuals can live free from the fear and reality of rape. Sociobiological theories of rape, while controversial, offer a complex lens through which to examine this devastating crime. These theories explore the potential influence of evolutionary pressures on human sexual behavior, suggesting that certain predispositions, like male aggression or a heightened sex drive, might have played a role in the origins of rape. However, it's crucial to distinguish between exploring potential evolutionary roots and justifying or excusing sexual violence. No biological factor can ever excuse rape, which is fundamentally a crime of violence, control, and violation. The debate surrounding these theories highlights the intricate interplay of nature and nurture. While evolutionary factors might contribute to certain underlying tendencies, human behavior is ultimately shaped by a complex web of social, cultural, and individual experiences. Cultural norms, gender roles, power dynamics, individual psychology, and personal experiences all interact to influence both the perpetration and prevention of rape. Understanding these complex interactions is essential for developing effective strategies to address this issue. Research in this area has explored various aspects of sexual behavior, including forced copulation in animals, the psychological motivations of rapists, women's defense mechanisms against rape, and the influence of social and cultural factors. While animal behavior can offer some insights into the diversity of sexual strategies in nature, it's crucial to avoid anthropomorphism and recognize the vast differences between animal instinct and human agency. Similarly, exploring the psychology of rapists is essential for understanding the underlying motivations and developing targeted interventions, but it's vital to avoid any interpretation that could excuse or justify their actions. These findings collectively contribute to a deeper understanding of the complex factors that contribute to sexual violence. They highlight the need for a multifaceted approach that addresses both individual-level factors, like psychological disorders or harmful learned behaviors, and broader societal influences, like gender inequality and the normalization of violence. This knowledge can inform the development of more effective prevention strategies, including challenging harmful social norms, promoting healthy relationships, supporting survivors, and holding perpetrators accountable. Looking ahead, research in this area could explore the interplay of genetic, hormonal, and environmental factors in shaping sexual behavior, further refining our understanding of the complex interplay of nature and nurture. It could also delve deeper into the psychological and social factors that contribute to rape, leading to more effective interventions and prevention programs. Ultimately, the goal is to create a society where sexual violence is not merely condemned, but actively challenged and ultimately eradicated. What are your thoughts on the complex interplay of nature and nurture in shaping human behavior? Share your questions and insights in the comments below. We encourage open and respectful discussion on this important topic. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and suggest topics for future videos. The pursuit of knowledge, even on challenging topics, is a crucial step towards creating a better world.